All right. Once again, call this meeting to order of the Kankakee City Council Community Development Committee for September 3rd. The time is 6:02 p.m. We'll begin with public comment. If anyone is here to make a public comment, now is the opportunity. Please state your name and your address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please direct your comments to the chair. Seeing no public comment, we'll move on to roll call. Prude. Absent. Barron, here. Osenga.
Present.
Swanson.
Here.
Navarez.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Noble.
Here.
All right, we do have a quorum with 6 members present. I'll also note that Alderman Marzak is here. Moving then to the approval of the August 5th, 2024 minutes. Those were sent on Friday, I believe. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at those.
I move that we approve the minutes from August, for our August 5th meeting.
Motion to approve the August 5th minutes made by Alderwoman Johnson. Is there a second?
I'll second, Chairman.
Second made by Alderman Osenga. All in favor of approval of the August 5th minutes, or excuse me, are there any comments or questions on the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes for August 5th as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, the minutes are approved. Next, we will go on to the presentation of the voucher draws. What's the correct phrase? Is it draw voucher or voucher draw?
It's draw voucher.
Okay.
Because that is just the language that we use for our reporting systems directly with the grants, so we use it for all of our
Draw voucher.
draw voucher. Yeah.
Okay. Maya, if you could present those, or if there's anything beyond what's been presented.
So there's not a whole lot beyond what's presented. You will see that there is quite a bit. We are getting on a better schedule with some of our grant funding, and some of our projects, as you have seen and you'll see today in the committee report, that a lot of our projects are moving forward and being completed. So you're also seeing a lot more from contractors than we have in the last few months, and you'll continue to see that in the upcoming months. So that's why it looks a little bit larger than normal.
Okay. I think the amount presented is $131,436.19.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve those draw vouchers?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Alderwoman Swanson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second made by Alderwoman Johnson. I will do this on a roll call. Barron, aye, but I would abstain as to the draw voucher to Eastgate Communications, LLC, 250815. Osenga?
Aye.
Swanson?
Aye.
Navarez?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Noble?
Aye.
All right, the draw vouchers are approved. Next, we will move to presentations. Today, we're joined by the Executive Director of United Way and Kankakee and Iroquois Counties, Mariah Vale, who has some community data to present.
I do indeed. Do you want here, there? Any preference?
Whatever you're more comfortable with.
I'll just stand here then. I'm going to pass your way via TV, Dave. I'll start with some data we wanted to share about 211. If you're not familiar with 211, it is a service that is through United Way. Each United Way county coverage covers the cost of this service for their area. So we cover it for Kankakee and Iroquois County. It is a free phone-based assistance line. So essentially when you call 211, a live person picks up, asks you for your zip code, and then troubleshoots with you live on what are you looking for. The thing I always like to mention is that we talk a lot about right now 988 and other crisis hotlines. Same training 211 operators have to go through, so they are able to de-escalate people in real time and help get them to where they need to go. The reason I love 211 is because I love data, so being able to see in real time what people in our community are asking for, and if that need is met, is very valuable. So I boiled this down to just be data for Kankakee County. So you're seeing these numbers fresh, and I pulled it for the most recent 365 days. So you'll see we received just from Kankakee County over 1,700 calls, and I included two key lists that I thought would be helpful. So at the very bottom, you'll see a breakdown of the largest areas of requested categories of needs. So you can see housing and shelter is number one, followed by utilities, with financial aid and healthcare. It kind of mixes after that. But housing and shelter has consistently dominated 211 as the most requested service category for over 4 years now. We've seen this trend. I provided a little bit more breakdown because one of the things that's helpful is even within these larger categories, we can see breakdowns of just subcategories, more specific needs. So you can see shelter in Kankakee County, we received 177 calls for shelter, and 14% of those are unmet. Now that unmet percentage is calculated because a week after you call 211, they call you back and ask, was the referral we made helpful, or did you get put on a wait list? Did they tell you that you weren't qualified for services? So it gives you a sense of if people are actually able to get into those services. So I provided the breakdown in this on the right-hand side of the 4 categories within housing and shelter that really spoke to me. On the left-hand side, you can also see some of the most requested service providers in our county. These are in no way, these are just from the last 6 months I could see. But this gives us just a snapshot of where people are going within our community. So I wanted to present this first as a little bit of context. And again, as you're making decisions on behalf of the residents in your ward, your neighbors, this is helpful data to just have a sneak peek into some of the key needs in our local community. And I'm going to leave a stack of 211 flyers here as well. The other piece of information I wanted to pass out, and I don't have as many of these printed, I apologize, but if you want to share, I'll pass this around. These are copies of what we call ALICE reports. So ALICE is research done through United Ways across the United States that looks at census data as a way to see what is the average cost of living in a community, and based on numbers, how many people are living below that threshold. ALICE is a phrase that, if you've ever heard the phrase, the working poor, I prefer the term ALICE because I feel like it gives a little bit more humanity. But ALICE gives us a good idea because ALICE stands for asset limited, income constrained, and yet employed, which is a fancy way to say these are individuals who are working and yet still fall below the average cost of living threshold. So you can see some historic numbers here, but right in the front page, you can see in Kankakee County, 28% of households are living underneath the ALICE threshold for our region based on cost of living in our area. That means 1 in 4 residents, over 1 in 4 residents here in Kankakee County are living paycheck to paycheck most likely. Those numbers might not surprise you, but there's some more detail in here, and perhaps some of these will surprise you. And again, this data is just helpful because it tells a story of what is going on in our community and in the homes next to us. If you skip forward a couple pages, I'll do note you see a little switch. There was a little glitch when I downloaded, switched, made it look like we had a very large Hawaiian population that was supposed to be Hispanic, so flip-flop those two. But that gives you a picture of everything from just comparing across the board which households in our community are more likely to be in this ALICE threshold. You can see over 40% of our Asian, Black, and Hispanic households are living underneath the ALICE threshold. You can also see this number is one of the most disturbing to me. 82% of our single female-headed families that have children are not meeting that basic cost of living. So that is objectively one of the most at-risk groups in our community to pay attention for. And then below, you can see households under the age of 25. So these are just young people just starting out Doesn't necessarily surprise you to see that a lot of them aren't making a ton of money very early on in their career. But one of the groups that did speak to me is 65 years and older. The fact that nearly 50% of our seniors who qualify for services are barely making that threshold. Thinking of fixed income, that makes sense. However, if you think also about some of the data we just looked at for 211, that means that some of those issues with housing and shelter are going to be far exaggerated for these groups. So I share this today, and you can see a little bit more breakdown on detail of costs, basics. But I share this because, again, this paints a story of what's going on in our community. It also helps empower us on, as we're making decisions, what do we need to be paying attention for in order to pay attention to all voices. So again, I will leave flyers here for you. There's also, just one last snapshot from me. Down here at the bottom of this flyer, you'll see the Can I Help website, which is another fantastic resource. It is specific to Kankakee and Iroquois County. The number on here says explore 750 or more local and national services. That is now far over 850 services. A high majority of them are just local nonprofits and human service organizations right here in Kankakee and Iroquois County. So this is a site I use weekly. I had someone email me today saying, I had a grandparent walk in, they're raising a grandchild, I don't know what resources to give them, and so I just plugged in a few keywords and was able to find that Catholic Charities has a program for grandparents raising grandchildren. So that's just the power of Can I Help and 211 as well, because not all people we work with are savvy with computers, so Can I Help might not be the best for them, but that's where 211 comes in. So I've said a lot. I'd love to answer any questions you might have, if you have any.
Any questions?
Yes.
So you're saying that if a family is in need of housing or assistance, if they call this 211, they'll be able to give them some kind of assistance?
I'll make a caveat for housing and shelter. I more often refer to the homeless hotline for Kankakee County because we have a more localized number, and that's more often what this number would end up kicking them over to anyways. But that homeless hotline, which I believe is managed through Fortitude, would put them on a wait list for multiple services. So it's a little bit more efficient for the housing and shelter category to just refer people directly there.
Okay.
So,
On the shelter number, 177 calls, are these people that are being evicted out of where they currently rent, they can't pay the rent, so they're being evicted, and they're looking for another place?
That, I would assume they would first refer to rent assistance over shelter, since that's a far larger chunk of the calls. I know from just personally, because sometimes people will not call 211 and they'll call my office instead, and that goes to my phone. So I weekly talk to multiple people about this, and that is one of the reasons why people end up going into the shelter category rather than rent assistance. Other things are exploitation. We see a decent amount of that, unfortunately, and just have heard sad stories of ending up in unsafe environments, in which most of the time you get referred over to Prairie State, who also has an extremely long wait list. And it's not timely in a situation where you need very timely assistance. So anyways, that's just one example, but it paints, again, it just gives us some context to the bigger issues we're seeing. Yes.
Thank you. For the shelter 177, when you receive these calls, do you screen these calls, see if where these calls are coming from? Are these people local or outside?
Yeah, so for bigger picture, 211, when someone calls 211, they actually get routed to a phone, I believe it's in Bloomington Normal is our local call center. Call centers cover like chunks of the United States, so thankfully not all 1,700 went to my phone. But for when they go to 211, they are asked, one of the first questions is, what's your zip code? And then they kind of zone in and can use a more current database just for our area.
Thank you.
all right, the Alice figures. So this depicts only, I mean, the sample set you're looking at here is only employed individuals. It's not, you're not even taking into account unemployed individuals?
There is a, I believe unemployed would be considered in here. Alice is the blue metric, so mine is unfortunately black and white, but I believe on yours.
Light blue.
Yes, Alice is in the middle, and Alice is when you are employed. So I think that is what you're asking. Alice, you would only be in the Alice threshold if you are employed, so you don't qualify for most poverty level services, but you are still not making a living wage.
Okay, so it's not a, it's a threshold, it's not a, it's, you know, you're not tracking how big or the group is or anything like that.
More or less. I mean, there's a little bit more numbers. If you really wanted to see numbers, we could get a little bit further. This is kind of like just big zoomed out perspective. But yeah, for the Alice group, it is specifically how many people are not able to qualify for most unemployment or poverty level services and yet aren't meeting our county's cost of living.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Dave, if I may, I also want to say thank you, since I'm back here. A lot of you helped, if not all of you, helped with Day of Action. And I just wanted, again, since I'm here, to say personally, thank you for helping make that possible. We had almost 100 people come out that day and volunteer. We got a lot done, and we got a lot of requests to do it again, so that's exciting. So just wanted to say that personally, deeply grateful for your help.
We had good feedback here when we did a debrief on it. I think most of those 100 were in the 6th Ward, but, you know, that's how that goes. Anything else for Mariah? All right, thank you very much. If you want to leave the information to give to the other people, we can do that.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to the departmental report, brought to you by Maya Pettigrew.
All right. So I want to say, like, as I mentioned with the bills, you're seeing a lot more of the projects getting completed, which is exciting. We, last year in September, had a contractor meeting, and we were able to get a lot of contractors in. There was a large delay in getting those contractors onboarded into our programs. That was twofold. One, we moved, so that process took a lot of time. But the other part is we've been working with Director Nelson, with Code, to get to a better place where the documentation that we are collecting on our end is not duplicate to the documentation that Code is collecting, so that we can go through them for that verification. So one of the things that was kind of a hang-up for some of these individuals was they would turn something into Code, and then I would be asking for the same thing, and it would feel like there was a disconnect within city departments. So you'll see some of these numbers start to improve a little bit more, because we do have a longer list of reliable contractors that we're able to work with. So even in the bills, you can see that there's some names that you might not recognize, because we're getting into some of those newer contractors. So going into the first two programs, our Lead and Healthy Homes, these are our larger, primarily focused housing rehab grants. Our Lead program, it does not currently have any projects completed, but you will see that there are 5 active projects. There is also a wait list that is specific to the Lead program. So with Crystal Rose coming on and being a part of our Lead program, being the program manager, we are now able to get this project moving a little bit more. So there, with that delay from Miss Gathing retiring and then getting Crystal fully onboarded, there has become a wait list. So if you have residents that are communicating with you that they have contacted someone about lead abatement and then they're still waiting, we are working through that wait list. Crystal is working diligently to get those that are on her desk moving, and then hopefully we'll be able to start pulling from that wait list soon. So there's a lot of projects in the pipeline for that program, and we're finally getting those moving along. So we've been on a few inspections already, and have got bids out to some contractors, so you'll start seeing those bills come through as well. Healthy Homes is moving along really well. We have 4 completed projects since May, and there are 4 active projects, but there's 5 in intake review, which is right now just like 3 documents, and then they'll be in that active project list as well. So the few that are in intake review are just getting through those final pieces of most likely income verification, just because we need 1 more pay stub or something like that. So we talk weekly in program manager, with the program managers about these things, and we're moving those along pretty quickly as well. Are there any questions about lead and Healthy Homes? Yeah?
On the Healthy Homes project, you have a home that's done and completed. The contractor's done the work. Who goes out and reviews the work that's been done? You
Yeah.
have somebody in your office that does that?
So we actually do 2 reviews. The first one is the program manager will do a review in what we refer to as like a final clearance. If the project does not have lead abatement or doesn't have any sort of lead work done, internally with our department, that's the only final clearance. But every project does go through a code review as well. Because there's a building permit involved with every project, code does go out to the project and send us a final clearance report on their end that it's up to code as well. If there's any lead abatement, because Healthy Homes does do lead abatement, we also go through our lead assessor to make sure that it's cleared of any lead hazards as well. So there's 3 clearances if it's a lead project, and there's 2 if there's a Healthy Homes with no lead. And our internal one checks just to make sure that everything that the grant agreement required is done, and then code is checking more detailed to the actual code needs. Yeah, yeah.
Under the lead program, do you know if any of the houses worked with Aqua to have the lines from their home to the street?
Not yet. So we haven't had any water lines come through the lead program. We do have a couple residents that have requested that quite a bit. And one of them is in that active list that we're communicating with, and then one of them is on the wait list, but near the top. So we're just trying to get these through. But we haven't had anyone that has tested positive for the lead and needed that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Was there another question? Okay. So then the next project is the Community Development Block Grant. So this has 2 facets to it. That is our housing rehab as well as the public service program. For the housing rehab, there are 14 active projects. So there's a lot going on in this program. The Community Development Block Grant Housing Rehab is in 2 different categories, but our primary use of this funds is the single-family rehab program. And that, similar to the Healthy Homes program, addresses all hazards in the home. And this one and the Healthy Homes program are working off that larger wait list that we have as a department, that as soon as a project is through intake, it's brought to a program manager meeting, and then based on the capacity of the CDBG program manager or the Healthy Homes program manager, that is divided between the 2 of them at this point. So that project is working through the wait list, so that's where that number is just going to continue to be relatively high until the funding is not there, which is unfortunately why we have the wait list, because we would get through projects and spend the funding down, and then once that grant's gone and we're waiting for the next one, that wait list can grow as we're waiting. So that is where we're at with the housing rehab. As for public service, the first quarter grant, the first quarter reports were due in mid-August. If you're a part of the economic development conversation too, you'll know that we were at the Midwest Institute for about a week in August, so that has delayed getting all of those reports categorized in our office. So that we'll have data for you soon on that. But it's not likely that anyone is going to be drawing down soon, because for this program, there is a 51% served requirement before they can draw down funds. So it's normally quarter 2 that we start seeing anyone being able to draw down funds because they've hit that threshold of that 51%. Any CDBG questions? Yeah.
So while they are finishing up the list, there's no new applications accepted
For the housing programs?
For the housing, yes.
So we are always adding to the wait list. If someone calls our office and is interested in housing rehab programs, we get basic information that includes like general contact and address, but also we try to make note of what they need. And then we add them to that wait list. So we're not actively taking full applications because by the time we would get to them on the wait list, a lot of that's expired anyway. So we don't want to put them through that legwork and then it not be fruitful for them because we have to redo it. As for the lead program, when someone calls, our intake process walks them through the question of, do you have children 6 and under in the household? Because if that's the case, they're automatically put on the lead wait list because that program works with children, with households with children 6 and under. So that's the biggest criteria in that, which wait list are you going on? But anyone that calls into our office does have access to that wait list.
Thank you.
Okay, so then going into the ARPA programs, so we have 2 that are active. The MIRA program, or the Median Income Rehabilitation Assistance, that one, the applications are actively closed. We received quite an influx of applications for that first round. We completed the first round and still had applications left over. So those applications that were already a part of that first round are what we've been going through for round 2. We have completed 2 projects, and we have, I apologize, I don't know where the third project is, but I can get that information to you. But there are 3 additional projects that are active in the MIRA program. So these take a little bit longer, simply because in the bidding process and in the conversation with the resident about what's being done in the house, there's a little bit more, there's just a little bit more of a conversation because this is a program where the residents are paying into it. So they have a little bit more customization than what we can offer in the other grant programs, that we are a little bit more restricted on materials and things like that. So these projects in the bidding process and getting into contract take a little bit longer, but we do have 2 completed, and we are going to start in the next month, in September, actively calling more from the wait list to start getting them into the program. And then the other one that's open is the Private Security Camera Incentive Program, which we are accepting applications, and then we'll discuss the new program in this meeting today. Any questions on MIRA?
Did that program go to 400 yet? Did that go through yet?
That's up for today.
Oh, the incentive, I was thinking MIRA, and I was like, I don't know what we mean. Okay, so then the last part of the report is our outreach and event calendar. For outreach this past month, we had quite a few things going on. This is our busier season. You will see that I wanted to talk about. The vendor fair was one that we were really looking forward to. This was an opportunity to connect with district teachers, to have a connection to be able to get into the classrooms with our information. So because our Healthy Homes and LED programs are targeted towards families with children, specifically 6 and under, but also just understanding that health is determined young often. We are trying to get into the schools for some education and to get families that we might not ever interact with at an event, access to our information. So we're looking forward to the fruit of that. We've already gotten some feedback from some of the teachers that are wanting to schedule opportunities for that, so that's really exciting. The other part of that vendor fair was an opportunity to connect with teachers about bringing what has been the community conversation format into the classroom for junior high and high school. So Marlena and Sam have talked about the idea of, we get feedback and that's great, but we're not necessarily hearing from our younger residents that are going to be a part of building the community that we're building and living in the community that we're building. So we're working on getting into the schools to get some more of that youth feedback as well. There's some data in here about the social media and some press release information. Thank you for moving forward that resolution for CDBG's 50th anniversary. That was an exciting opportunity for us as we're trying to better tell our story and the way that we are using these funds, as well as advocating for access to more abundant funds for the work that we're doing. For the upcoming events, you'll see there's quite a bit going on. The one that I want to talk about is ECDA's community conversation. If you have residents who have showed any interest in being a part of these events, this one is going to be super important. So we take feedback throughout the year, and then this one, community conversation, is going to be an opportunity where we're presenting the feedback that we've received and giving the next step to the residents to say, how do you want us to prioritize this? So we've heard this list of things. We do have to make priorities as we make our plan. So how can we prioritize this to best fit the needs of the community? So that's what this session is going to be, what this community conversation is going to be. And then coming up in October is going to be the presentation of our consolidated plan, which is, again, based on these community conversations and will be based on the priorities made. So we would encourage everyone that can to come out to this September community conversation so that we can make sure that we're prioritizing based on what the community needs. The last thing that I have is just a plug for the upcoming contractor meeting. So this is going to be similar to how it was last year, but again, we have a better process in place, so this will go a little bit smoother. I have communicated with Code about having a representative on site so that we can make sure that any of the questions that I'm not able to answer about being a contractor in the city are going to still be able to be answered. We are putting out there, if you've seen on our social media, this graphic has been out there, but there's also something that is specifically asking for plumbers and electricians, because those are two of the things that are just specialized enough that when we have a project, for example, we're working through more than one project right now that is a full house rewiring, and that requires a obviously skilled trade. So we love our general contractors, and we will always take more of them because we do have a lot of work. But specifically, if you know of residents that are plumbers or contractors that are licensed with the city, we would love to have them at this meeting and talk with them about being a part of our programs. And that's all.
Any questions for Maya? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to old business. First up, the Private Security Incentive Program. Barbie did send out the updated policies and procedures for everyone to take a look at. Hopefully you did receive those, and hopefully you're able to take a look. Maya, do you have anything as to an update on those, or what changes were made?
So the document that was sent, the highlighted section is where the changes were, and that was with feedback about the previous applications. So getting the understanding that if someone did go through the private security camera incentive program, they still do have access to the additional funds that are through this lighting and camera incentive program. So if they did receive that $200 in the previous program as a resident, this language that has been adjusted in the submission requirement section is stating that they can then still apply under this new program and receive that additional $200 to get to that $400 that this program is allowing.
I noticed also, so this would be available retroactively to any cameras or lighting installed after July 1st of this year.
Yeah, and that's because that's when this came to the committee the first time.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about the policy, the rules and guidelines? Okay. If there are none, if people are comfortable with those as presented, I'd be looking for a motion to recommend we send this to the full council for approval.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made by Alderwoman Swanson, second made by Alderwoman Noble. We'll do this on roll call. Alderman Barron, aye. Alderman Osenga.
Aye.
Alderwoman Swanson.
Aye.
Alderman Navarez.
Aye.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderwoman Noble.
Aye.
All right, 6-0, ayes have it. So we will recommend that this be sent to the full council with a positive recommendation. Okay. Next up on old business, the Continuum of care reform. Any new updates on that at this point?
We do not have any new updates. So the two aspects of what's happening here is we're working with the SNAP office on the process and kind of walking through their steps about what it looks like to become an independent COC. This, again, is just technical assistance, so no decision has been made, and it would require the full local COC to be on board, but we are just working with the HUD technical assistance to get through that process just to see what it could look like. The other side of what's going on with the COC is preparation for another homeless summit. I want to make sure I got that right. So that is coming, and you'll have more information as that is planned. So I think we're looking into November for that event, but we'll have final information once we receive it available to the council.
Have we gotten any word about the shelter on Fifth Avenue?
We have not. The last update that I had was the temporary pause until the weather allowed them to have their budget
Got it.
utilized better.
Okay. Any other questions about continuum of care reform? Seeing none, we'll go to item C, Kankakee Regional Land Bank Authority funding. I don't know if there's any additional comments or discussion we need to have on this at this point.
I don't know of any, no. I think it was just kind of on the table of how we are going to move forward with that, but I don't know that any decision is ready to be made.
Okay.
Mr. Chair? Sure.
Yes.
On the land bank, we did get some information about the county is going to be willing to participate. They're not going to put out the money that was requested, but they're willing to pay for projects. For example, if we have a demolition going on and we need funding, the county will write up a check for that project. So there's not a set number that they're going to give us for the land bank, just like maybe the city would. That's the last we heard on our last meeting.
Okay. So how's that going to be done? Just they're going to submit it to the
I guess that's a
administration?
conversation we can follow up with maybe Barbie
Okay.
and see where it goes from there.
What's the expectation with that new program that the land bank will be able to obtain properties that are not rehabbed within 12 months after the scavenger sale? Is there an expectation about how quickly that can come up to speed, or what sort
Yeah.
of cost that's going to require from the?
So basically what's going to happen, there's going to be a little capsule on the contract. If somebody purchases a property, they have 12 months to do the job. If not, then the land bank can take possession of that property.
Okay. How quickly is that going to be put into place?
Pretty soon.
Okay.
I mean, quick.
Okay. I know that there is a committee of the whole meeting at the end of this month, so that may be talked about there. Any other questions about the land bank?
Can I ask a question? Do you know, like, I know legal fees were kind of a big expense for the land bank. Is the county going to help with those? Or
I don't know about legal fees, but just for the properties, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, then the last thing that we have on the agenda for old business is the Community Advisory Board reform. We brought this up, discussed it briefly at our last meeting. You have in your hands two documents, proposed bylaws and a proposed board member application. What I discussed with Barbie a little bit earlier today, and Maya, if you have anything to add to this too, in order to meet the timeline that this be in place, these changes be in place by January 1st, which is the relevant time for it actually to be useful, it's kind of a quick timeline that we need to get these before the council so that those can be discussed, approved hopefully. Then in October, we go through the process of trying to identify the particular members from each of the wards to sit on this community advisory board. And then there's going to be some follow-up with that so that they be appointed, approved, in November by Thanksgiving, and then be able to move forward in December. So quick timeline with these. I will let Maya, go through them, but what I've been asked from Barbie is that we would at least send these forward to the council if we're comfortable with it, not necessarily with the positive or negative recommendation, but just allow it to be presented at the next city council meeting. In the meantime, we can offer specific feedback that could be incorporated into the documents themselves. So, Maya, do you want to go through what's been listed?
Well, I do want to say that your memory of the timeline is impressive. It is also the last page of the document, so you got it all from memory, though. Kudos. So there is...
When Barbie talks.
Yeah, in detail. So there is a timeline on that last page of the board, or the bylaws, that kind of explains why the timeline is a little bit of a quick turnaround for y'all. The goal is that this committee provides the feedback specifically right now that we need for the public service program, and that's why that timeline is a quick turnaround. But going through the bylaws, there have been very little changes from what was presented when we initially instituted CAB as the Citizen Advisory Board. So the bylaws are pretty much the same. The biggest change is going to be in the membership ask of you all. So two things that are changed. One is that we have a request for less individuals on the board. So what was happening a lot in the past was that because of how many people we had, it was very difficult to have a quorum. And we weren't able to get business done as we would have liked. So we are looking now just for 7 individuals to be a part of this board, and that would be 1 individual from each ward. So the ask of you all is to provide us with some names, preferably more than 1, so that we can send out an application to those that are interested, and kind of work through that process. The other document before you is the membership application, and you'll see that the first page is general information, demographic information, but the last 2 pages are more specific to the narrative of why they want to be a part of this committee. The reason that this community advisory board is so important is not just to make that decision, because we do need assistance in that, but also to make sure that the decisions that we're making are relevant to what the community needs. So if there are 3 organizations that are asking for the same thing, and we have to make the decision of only one of them needs to get the funding, we want to make sure that the community has an input in that. Or if we have 12 applications and can only award 10 grants, we want to make sure that the community is telling us what they need and what they want to see in their community, which is where this board comes in. So for those 7 individuals, again, we're asking for 1 individual that will be from each ward. We are asking that it is resident, not employed in the ward. So the focus is that these individuals live in your ward. And then again, if you have more than 1, that would be great, and then we can give the application to more than 1 individual, and then go through the process of scoring based off of the application that is submitted. So again, as Alderman Barron said, the ask is that we're just giving a motion to approve this to be on the council agenda for this upcoming council, to just ensure that we hit that timeline, but we're still open for feedback on the actual documents as well as the process of the application that's in here.
So a person on this advisory board, how often would they meet?
Monthly. I want to make sure I said that right.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes, Alderman.
I'm a little, I see this application. And are you a registered voter? And what is your household income? Who is your employer? This is almost like an application for somebody that's applying to rent a property from somebody. I almost think that is a little personal.
Okay.
You're asking people what their income is. I don't know how much that would affect being on this committee, why those kind of questions would be asked.
Can I give some feedback into that? And not saying that it needs to be on there. But one of the reasons that we often include income in all of our documentation is just to ensure that we're still getting the voice of that low to moderate income family and household that is a part of this, a part of a lot of the services that we provide as a department. So it's not that that would be a threshold that would have to be met to be a part of it. It's just so that when we say the voice of what was the community advisory board included those of all incomes or whatever, but it isn't necessarily a part of the application that we are basing any criteria for acceptance on. It's more of a data collection to ensure that we're communicating the voice that's being spoken. But I do understand that it is,
I think it's a little intrusive,
yeah.
my opinion.
Other comments?
Kurt?
Okay. All right, is it, well, I guess I'll leave it to the committee. Is it the committee's feeling that this should go to full council? And again, keeping in mind that any particular comments or changes can be sent in the meantime before that document would get sent out to the full council, right?
Chairman, I'll make that motion that we present the application and the bylaws to the full city council.
Motion made by Alderwoman Swanson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second made by Alderwoman Johnson. We'll do a roll call vote. Alderman Barron, aye. Alderman Osenga. Aye. Alderwoman Swanson.
Aye.
Alderman Navarez. Aye. Alderwoman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderwoman Noble.
Aye.
All right, all in favor, 6-0. We will ask that it be presented at the September 17th? 16th council meeting, that's right.
And any of the comments in between then can be sent to myself or Barbie, just so that we can make sure to get those edits before we send the document out.
Okay. Can this be sent out to the full council in advance as well?
Yes, I do have a note to say that. This will be sent out digitally tomorrow to the full council.
Okay. I'll make a note, I'll make a comment today during the meeting just to say that's coming. All right, that's it for old business. We have no new business on the agenda, no need for an executive session. Then I would ask if there are any alderperson comments at this time. The only comment that I would want to make is, you may have seen that our community has recently suffered a pretty big loss. Reverend Vincent Clark, who was the executive director of KCCSI. If you look at the 211 snapshot that we were provided by United Way today, the very first agency as to some of the most requested service providers is KCCSI. Reverend Clark built that up and really made it into what it is today. So when we're talking about the community development needs of Kankakee, he is somebody that contributed greatly to that. And he's going to be sorely missed by not just leadership, but the people who are being served in a very, intense way. So hope you do keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Any other comments? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Alderman Osenga. Is there a second?
Second.
Second made by Alderman Navarez. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. We stand adjourned at 6:51 PM.
It's haunted.
Good meeting. Just flying through.
Hey, lady.
Yeah.